Hey everyone, Johan here, CEO of Wing Toolbox. Another day, another podcast. Today we're going to talk a little bit about sales in the home services industry. And these are two gentlemen I've wanted to get on air for a while and just talk about this stuff a little bit. Firstly, got Dan James. He's a ex-user of Wing Toolbox, but now he's co-owner of Wing Toolbox. And he was previously the owner of Black Diamond Experts, HVAC company in Utah. Welcome, Dan. And then also Vince McCullum. He has a lot of experience in revenue operations. I think he's worked with Dan in the past a little bit. Not anymore, but he also knows a lot about technology and how to bring that stuff and things like AI into your sales and I guess revenue operations, you would call it. So maybe Vince, maybe you'd give a little bit of just explain your background and your knowledge around this stuff.
Yeah, I got into my career as a marketer originally, but then since transformed myself more into a revenue operator. So, where the intersection of sales and marketing kind of meet there. And then from that, though, in the last 10 years is kind of when I started becoming a fractional CRO, going more into revenue operations. And then just a couple years ago, like everyone has seen across, at least the United States, and then obviously the blow up all over the world is where revenue just kind of slammed, right into AI. And what do you do with AI? How do you leverage it? Is it here to stay? Are we scared of it? And trying to figure that all out. So I worked with a company called Enhanced AI, and that's really kind of where I got my feet wet with all things sales meeting AI, and then kind of what that means as far as what's translated to today's opportunities.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. We're going to dig into some of those AI tools a bit later in the chat today. Maybe Dan, a good point to switch over to you a little bit. Can you maybe talk about Black Diamond and the growth you guys had there? Because I know, over the last few years there, you guys had a huge growth spurt, and that's how you were able to get to the point of selling the business. Can you maybe talk about when did things start accelerating and what was the reasoning for it?
Yeah, so I started Black Diamond back in 2009 as just an electrical company. It was Black Diamond Electric, and we grew relatively quick with all things considered, doing just electrical. But then in around 2015, we brought on plumbing and HVAC, and that was kind of where a lot more of our growth came, because it was like starting two new companies essentially within that company, and so. Had plenty of ups and downs throughout the process, but I have learned a lot of valuable lessons. A lot of them have been through the school of hard knocks and making mistakes and learning how to fix them. And then I was very fortunate to be able to work with some really knowledgeable partners over these last few years that helped me open my eyes a little bit more to better practices and how to improve sales and that type of stuff. So.
Yeah. So what did you have to change in your sales processes to start accelerating more? What were some of those early mistakes you made? If you could go back and say, I want to get the sales engine running better from the start.
Yeah. So, I didn't value sales as highly as I should have for a long time, in terms of, you got to have sales or else nothing else happens. And sometimes when you're running a business, you can get a little bit into the weeds on different things, trying to make different areas of the business perfect. And you take your pulse off of the sales, and then all of a sudden you got no work for everybody. And so having consistent marketing and consistent opportunities is big, but training, doesn't matter how good your sales guys are. You got to train them consistently, every week or multiple times a week. Always trying to sharpen that sword, and that helps out a lot. But one mistake that comes to mind is the complexity of the sales compensation plan for, let's say, an HVAC salesman or a camera tech or an electrician or whatever. I'm a little bit of a nerd, kind of like Johan, not nearly as much of a nerd, but I myself and my and controller, we came up with some pretty intense commission structures to pay our tax, and it was so damn complicated that no one understood it. And if a tech doesn't understand it, he throws his hands up and he's not going to perform. And so one of the big things that helped us a ton in the sales area was getting rid of Dan's old compensation plans that were just way too complicated, and we came out with some very straightforward, easy to understand compensation plans and reporting that made it really clear to the sales guys, hey, this is the KPIs we're looking at. This is why you're getting these type of opportunities, and then when you run commission every week, they know exactly what they're going to get paid on. There's not this mystery of what's coming up. We would have a really solid commission statement right in front of them before we ran payroll. They could review that, which they all do, and then they all complain about something here or there, and you tweak it around, and then you get payroll done. And so that made a huge difference in the company once we started getting that transparency by having that compensation plan in place.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I'm a very technical guy. I'm a technical founder, so I do understand it. I understand conceptually the importance of sales, but dealing with people is not my strength. So I try and lean on technology a lot, or get into the details, like you say, probably too much sometimes, and you need to step back a little bit. But there's a lot of tools out there, I guess, that help, and maybe Vince, you can talk about that. But because you've managed like sales teams and stuff as well, so how do you combine the technology aspect with the people aspect? And I think, Dan, you kind of mentioned this a little bit. I think clear metrics, how do you show those? Those kinds of things are probably very valuable to make what could be a very technical process a bit more accessible to us humans, right?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to combine the two is simply very delicately. And you just have to be so careful. Like I have worked with and worked alongside a lot of salespeople who are fortunate enough to be successful throughout their careers by doing something one way or doing it eventually their way. And the best way to involve technology with the salesperson or with the sales process is to show how that enables and supports the sales and not does it with them or necessarily for them. It's not to take over for them. It's not to replace anything that they do well or kind of puts their stamp on it in that kind of way. So once a salesperson, in my opinion and from my experience, they understand that this is here to help me be more successful, to earn more commission, to close more deals. Now I'm way more receptive to it than why are you making me do something that I have never had to do before and been successful without. So that's kind of what I have noticed and seen. I mean, even without getting into AI, right? There's a lot of sales technology out there, even just from what CRM that you're using.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of opinions on CRMs. There's a lot of opinions on what's the best dialer, what's the best, source for leads and pulling lead lists. Is it Zoom Info? Is it Apollo? Is it Seamless? And to be honest, I mean, everyone's going to have an opinion there, but what one supports you, and especially the ICP or the audience that you're chasing after, better. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and having those conversations with your salespeople.
Yeah. Yes, I think we do get a little bit stuck on the specific CRM a lot of times, and like we personally we've used about 3 or 4 different CRMs over the years. We're on HubSpot at the moment, and it's okay, but everything else. Everything has its own little holes and gaps, or it's really good at certain things. Now, I know, Dan, when you guys started really growing and you brought on partners, you guys switched to Service Titan. And I mean, we're a Service Titan partner ourselves, so it's a big part of this. Maybe talk about how did Service Titan help you guys? Was it a game changer? Was it important?
Yeah. We I think we did the transition during COVID. I want to say it was probably 2020 or so when we did the conversion over to Service Titan, and it was a tedious process, and it was a never ending job to try to keep everything going in there. But some of the things that are really powerful with Service Titan is they have various reportings and different ways that you can view data in there, even on the text iPads and stuff. But the problem was always with us was the data was never right. This guy would show, X closing percent and X average ticket, but then you dig into it and it would be wrong. And it was because a lot of cases, uh, us not using service type properly to doing everything in the right order. And but then when we dove in deeper to try to fix that stuff, we kind of realized that it's really hard to get around that. And so that's why I use Wink and for outside reporting, just because you can set your own parameters on there. What's your what is a conversion? What's not a conversion? What's the sold job threshold? Some people do it at $40. Some people have zero sold job, or some people it's $100. And so some of those little things that make a big difference on that front. But Service Titan overall really did help our business a lot. I mean, we outgrew the software we were on before that, but it's a big operation, and we had to have a full time person that was just doing Service Titan stuff for us to try to keep up with it as we were growing quickly. But once we got acclimated on it, all the other companies use it as well. So when you hire somebody from one of your competitors, they're usually pretty well trained on how to use it and things like that. So.
Okay. Yeah. Vince, does this ring true for you? How did you guys track performance, or which metrics even that you guys used to track?
Yeah, it does. I mean, what's interesting is we have had conversations before. I mean, with Dan, with you, Johan. I mean, what KPIs are important? What do you do with sales? And what's kind of interesting is it's kind of the same KPIs everywhere, right? I mean, how you sell is one thing, but what you track seems to always be the same, right? How many leads are coming in? What are we doing with said leads? How are
Yeah.
we paying the commission on those? And bringing them to demo and booking those calls, and then going basically through the funnel. I mean, that's not changed, and I don't think that there is necessarily a need for it to change. What it kind of looks like in the front of that is, if as long as the KPIs work for you and they work for your institution, then what are you going to do to support and make more efficiencies or optimizations for those salespeople to really succeed, and basically, give them the ceiling that they're shooting for instead of the one that they're currently facing in front of.
Yeah. I think, Dan, you kind of mentioned a bit of that. You make the numbers as simple as possible, but then keep it in front of people as well. Like I know some of our clients love the big, put everything up on the TV in the office, right? And you can kind of have a leaderboard and see how people are going. What did you guys used to do to keep the team motivated and fired up? Because I mean, money is a motivator, but there's more to it than just the comp plan, I guess.
Yeah, so we had a system we called the success tracker, I believe is kind of the overall system. But
I
for
do
one, we were
remember
very,
that. I worked on that with
yeah.
you.
Yep, yeah, you guys helped me out with that, and really, we were very transparent about the sales numbers for all the departments. In terms of they would be on the TVs in the building when the guys come in there in the meetings. It was never any secret who had the most sales that week, and that natural competitiveness helped out a little bit. Sometimes it could cause some problems here and there, but it was something that just had to be there. And then, we did monthly stand-ups where I'd get up there and highlight, the company sales and show everybody in the company that, hey, sales is what makes the company run. And that's, the first thing that has to happen. And so that really, got people really, motivated and excited about it. Another thing that we did that I was nervous to implement, but we did it, and they're still doing it now over there, is the right tech for the right call. I mean, if you're if your conversion rate is higher than the other guys and your average ticket is higher, guess what? You're going to get the call. You're going to get the better calls. That's just what it is. Obviously, if somebody that's got better KPIs than you can't make it to the call, then we just go down the list. But and it was tricky to roll that out, and there was definitely complaints usually from the guys that were at the bottom. But
I can think of 100 complaints that people would have about this, but it usually someone who's not at the top has the complaints, right? So.
Yep, exactly. Well, and I've seen guys go from the very bottom back up to the top again, and sometimes the guys at the top get lazy and they start stop doing the trainings or not being focused on it or whatever it might be, and it gives somebody else the opportunity. Another thing I've seen guys do is they'll work they'll do more after hours calls and weekend calls because those calls are a lot harder to delegate to certain technicians, and that's another way you can kind of step it up and improve your game. But I'd say that had a really big positive impact on the operation.
Yeah, Vince, any experience you got with how to keep people, excited about it?
I mean, so I agree with everything that Dan said. I mean, different companies, different ways of going. I mean, for me, it's always kind of boiled down to what is the company's culture,
Yeah,
and how do salespeople fit inside that culture, right? So, coming, I have a tech background, for example, in revenue operations. That's part of it, and putting sales metrics and numbers all over on TVs, all over the company, and up and down hallways, like kind of what you said before, like that worked in some places because it created a competitive atmosphere. People wanted to feel like they were on top. People wanted other people to recognize that, yep, that's me. I'm the one on top. And I've not really met a lot of tech salespeople who are not semi-competitive at
they're
minimum,
super competitive.
right? That's the breed that they are, and that works.
Yeah,
That works. There's that motivation alone is I can't let someone else beat me, and that's fine. But when it translates to other industries or other companies, maybe that culture doesn't exist.
yeah,
And so if you're really holding it on the culture is going to be probably in two parts: is how does the brand and how does the culture and just kind of all the feelings, kind of the qualitative stuff behind it, support sales and those kind of aggressive, competitive type of individuals, and then the leadership that supports that culture, that therefore supports those people. So are you having those kind of one-on-ones with sales to say, hey, I'm not seeing this out of you, I need you to step it up, or hey, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, what are we going to do? And kind of light that fire. Kind of like a little bit with what Dan is saying. I mean, you're a salesperson and you work to lock down your base, you keep working to lock down commission, and you keep fighting to lock down your OTE. But what keeps you going?
yeah,
At the end of the day, it's not only just about money, it's also about what you're doing. Does it make any sense? Is there a purpose behind the money that you're bringing in? Even if that purpose is, I just want to be number one and be recognized as number one, right? And that's fine too. So, I mean, everything that Dan said is true. I would just probably partner that up with culture and leadership. I mean, that's what I've seen to be the best way to motivate and to keep people motivated. And then on
yeah.
the flip side, it's also one of the best ways to coach people out if they don't see and fit your culture and that's not what you're trying to create, and they kind of seem to stick themselves out.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, getting the right person in the right position, and making sure that it's such a corporate word, but the culture fit. It is a thing. It definitely is a
It is.
thing. And
Well, it's a
Yeah.
thing, but at the same time, sometimes you just need salespeople. So you don't always
yeah,
have the luxury of fitting them into a culture because you just need performance and you need people in seats.
Mhm.
And there's
yeah.
that too. It is a little bit of a luxury, but I feel like if you have the
But
right
it,
blend, you can
but
do it the right way.
but it helps if people believe in what the company is doing, right? I mean, for
Yeah.
HVAC, I mean, I don't know. Even a HVAC company has, I'm guessing some sort of mission or goal around it. Then, I mean, I'm sure you guys have the same thing. Like it flowed down from management all the way down. You guys were using the traction system or something, right? So you were very much,
Yeah.
again, the right people in the right spots, right? Like, so maybe talk to me about the hiring process. I mean, what are the key things that you guys were looking for to hire the right
Yeah.
salespeople, or was it really like literally anyone and just let them prove themselves?
Well, I'll say in the beginning, especially when we started doing plumbing and HVAC, it was hiring about anybody we could get. At the time, it was just hard to get, the right guys. And we hired some guys that worked out well, and some guys just didn't, weren't a fit. And so over time, we got much more strict about, who we're hiring and making sure that we're very confident they're going to be a culture fit and they're going to, get excited about our core values and our mission and be just a good fit long term. And so, for the technical sales guys, I mean, like plumbers and electricians, the guys that are like myself that can do the work, but also they need to do the selling part. we found it was in a lot of cases easier to teach somebody that's good at sales how to be a good electrician or a good plumber, or versus getting a plumber and trying to make him a salesperson. It's tough.
That's
I was never a good
interesting.
salesperson.
So
Yeah,
I
I
would have
mean,
thought almost the opposite. I mean, I like to think I'm a very technical guy, and I always tell my people like selling is just helping, or
mhm.
solving a problem. That's probably my engineering background thinking that. So I kind of usually think that if you're good at solving the problems, the sale will just kind of happens on its own. But it's interesting that you're saying kind of the opposite. So
Yeah, and communication is huge with the customer. I mean, you got to think in our world, you show up in a van, you're coming to a house, the customer, may or may not be upset about the situation. Maybe their furnace is out, or their basement's flooding or whatever, and you've got to be able to walk into that house and quickly show that customer that you know what you're doing, and that
yeah,
you understand what the best routes are to address the issue, and do whatever you can to make sure that once the job is sold and completed, that customer's got a smile on their face and is leaving us a good review. And so it's a lot. And the guys that are really good at it, they make really good money. I saw some, just regular good, electricians and plumbers that once they got the right training and we gave them the right opportunities, that really did very well in their careers in a short amount of time, just by kind of following those, that guide and the advice that we were giving them. So
yeah. Vince, you mentioned to me once, like at some of the places you've worked in the past, the sales guys were the best paid guys, the top sales guys, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like can earn more than can earn more than the C-suite.
Oh yeah, I
yeah.
mean, if you're really good at sales, it's massively lucrative, and not just for you, the salesperson, but for the company and for their scalability and their success. Kind of like a little bit with the culture thing. It's at what degree does the salesperson know and recognize that and use that to or for their advantage against the culture, right? Then,
Yeah.
then you got some
So
fun times.
yeah, so if I want to have my Lambo in the parking lot,
Yeah.
outside the business, and I'm a sales guy, Vince, what tools would I be looking at these days to give me a leg up, against everyone else? How what kind of yeah, tools, and then maybe the AI stuff we were talking about earlier. Like what's cool at the moment out there?
Um, Man, there's a
It's a
lot of
big
cool things
question.
at the moment. There's a lot of cool things. I mean, what's really interesting is for anyone who's following the AI game has probably heard, even if it's rumor and weird stories about DeepSeek coming out of China,
Yeah,
and DeepSeek being an immediate super player and direct competitor to ChatGPT and OpenAI that we have basically been using in the States. And that was like the big first name from the current renaissance, if you will, of how we use AI. AI isn't new; it's existed for decades, but how we're using it and how we're interfacing with it and how we're utilizing it professionally feels new. And I feel like that's kind of the frontier. So, um, what's interesting in the AI space is there's a lot of copycat tools out there, and there's a lot of tools in AI that feed off of a neutral system, or excuse me, a super system or an or originating system. So tapping back to OpenAI or tapping back to Anthology or something like that. Um, what is it that you're trying to do to help your sales team? So one thing when I address AI, just right off the bat, is AI is not going to do everything for you right now. It's still in a weird way as far as like sales enablement goes and revenue operations. It's still in its infancy. So if you go into it with a mindset of AI is not going to solve these things for me, but instead is going to enhance me or empower me to do certain things, now we have a good foundation to start. So you as a sales leader need to look at your department and your team, the skill sets that you have, and then the goals that you're trying to reach and the KPIs you're trying to hit, and say, okay, what is it that we need? How can I use AI to fill in gaps?
yeah,
Some of those gaps maybe we're just spending way too much money. We need to cut that down. Some gaps are we need to be creating more lead lists for our SDRs to go tackle. Some of it might be we're spending too much money on SDRs. Can this offset if SDR work? How does this empower my AEs? So instead of really just giving out names, it's more of where in the funnel are you trying to optimize? Because there is an AI tool out there that will support and enable you to do that thing and to do it really, really well. But it won't, I guess it won't
You're not going to
replace.
get an AI salesperson, basically, right? I
Right, and
mean,
that's the thing is we can clone you, we can clone Dan, we can do all these kind of things, but it has to learn from something, it has to pull from something, so things still need to be created and to be trained. So as much as you see those kind of things exist, they're kind of a novelty, if you will. I mean, it is false to think like, oh yeah, it's just going to take over.
yeah. And I think as well, and this is for ourselves as well. Like, I mean, there's a lot of other automation and reporting solutions out there, but a lot of them are very cookie cutter. Like, here's your dashboard, this is the fixed thing. Whereas
Yeah,
we really focus on customized and things that are tailored to you for your business. Uh, the issues an AI has is coming up with things that it's never seen before, right? It's really good at things that it has seen before and that you can train them on. But if it's always novel things, then you do need that human aspect there. And I can imagine the same. It's like Dan was saying, if you show up at a house and there's the kitchen is underwater, the
yeah,
AI is not going to help you at all at
Yeah.
that point, right? So you really want to see this. I think what I've seen, and we've built for a few people and talked around, is kind of more quality of life kind of
yeah,
functionality where it helps make your life as a salesperson easier. Like one solution that a client came up with, which I thought was amazing, was just we put your Service Titan invoice, into an AI, just all the line items, and these things look like it's like this bit of pipe and this and whatever and a condenser. Like, no one knows what that does, but we put that in and it just gives a little description in normal human terms for for someone at like that's not technical, explain what these things on the invoice are for and why it was needed, right? And so just that 3 or 4 sentences explanation of, hey, this explains the invoice for you, just reduced people trying to argue or need explanations for every line item on the invoice, right? That
yeah,
was one example. Another one that I've seen, and we haven't built this yet, but I'm about to build it for someone because it sounded really cool, is where the AI tries to come up with upsell suggestions. Again, you give to the salesperson because they're going to do it. But I've seen
yeah,
where, if you get a job for a certain address, you can kind of connect to API and get homeowner information, right? So you can see like how old is the house there, how much is it worth, how big is the house, So then they feed that into an AI and say, come up with some suggestions here. This house is 110 years old, so there's going to be a lot of potential maintenance and other things that people might want to upgrade there. Suggestions around that, or hey, the house is this big, but helps you with the sizing of systems. That kind of stuff. So I think these augmented things is really where the future is at. I mean, does that sound true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are good, yeah, good examples and good ideas. I mean, having a solid price book to work off of in our industry is huge. I'm mainly talking about the customer facing side right now, but my service manager Jared that I've worked with for forever, he was always really big on putting in really good detailed descriptions on each of the line items, and nothing's worse than when a tech or a salesman goes to a house and they say, oh, it's going to be $10,000, and they put a couple words here, and bam, and customers don't like that. But on the flip side, I've been I've been tasked with building the price book, and it's to think every single item that you're trying to sell to have a really good in-depth description that's saved in Service Titan that could easily be adjusted to fit different scenarios. That's a lot of work, and that's why I love the price book auto price book updater that Wink does to keep your price book up to date. But then also, adding a little AI on there to help you get good descriptions that people that aren't in the industry can read and understand. And we get tunnel vision in the trades because we know this is that and this is this, but it's like you got to remember a homeowner, likely doesn't know any of that stuff, and when you explain it to them, it might go right over their head. But if you have some AI help to make it nice and clear, hey, this is what we're doing, that helps out. A confused mind says no, right? Someone that's not confused, and they know what they're getting, those are the people that are going to be saying yes more often. So I think that's really big.
That's probably one of my favorite parts about AI is when you create something and you get a price book description back, you can say, all right, now read it back to me like as if I were a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Like dumb it down for and make it so simple. I mean, Dan's right. Like there are so many great salespeople out there who say, give me everything that I need and then basically get out of my way. But a lot of things that they need come with a foundation of research and homework and data and things. And what AI is really great at is let's eliminate the manual process. Let's eliminate the tedious tasks, the time consuming this, that, and the other. So putting things into a price book, let's go find the pricing for this. Let me research the pricing for this. And now I have to create a description for all of these things. And I'm basically creating this mega catalog. That takes someone forever. Especially in, let's call it the pre-COVID world, right? Like that takes someone forever. But is that paramount? Is that a massive tool for a salesperson to have to use in the trades? Like absolutely. Without it, what are they supposed to do? And they're not going to be successful without it. So yeah, I mean, there is an interesting intersection, right? As you're kind of going professionally speaking between what sales can do, what tech can do, support the sales, and then what the tech and sales does to support the company. I mean, it's all right there. I think it does start with if you don't really understand your funnel, your sales funnel is what I'm talking about. You as a business owner might say, "Well, I need help with all of it. I don't know the problems in my funnel, like all of it. I need leads. We need sales. Like, what are you talking about? I need all of it." I mean, stop and probably pump your brakes and say, "All right, where are my manual tasks? What are tedious, time-consuming processes?" And then let's start there. And kind of like what Dan said, I mean, that's really a beautiful thing that I have seen with Wink's Toolbox, and it really is like, here's all the automations you need to basically eliminate yourself from being that variable problem in order to scale these solutions. Like remove yourself from that, and we will alleviate that. Will help you to scale and to grow. And if anyone's ever used tools like Service Titan, I mean, you're not going to spend all that money and that investment into something unless you have that backup plan to make it worth the investment and the expenditure of money to make it make sense. Why would you do that? Like, that's just crazy. You're basically competing against yourself at that point. So that's where, if you have the right partnership tool in there, I mean, you're like, hey, what's the name? Like, well, if you're using Service Titan, if you're in the trades and you're not using Wink Toolbox, you're probably wasting a significant amount of time and process that it's almost asinine at this point.
And repeatability, right, as well. So
yeah. I mean, even if it doesn't have a direct effect on sales, but maybe indirect effect. I mean, if you've got your accounting team that's getting bogged down with doing all the job costing, manually and making sure everything's batched before you send it to Service Titan, or to your QuickBooks or Sage. That's a lot of work that's being done that could be delegated out. I mean, if you are able to automate that type of stuff with AI, then you're paying your accounting team less or having less headcount, and you can invest more into other areas of the business. I mean, the call center is where the sale starts, essentially, when the customer calls in and making sure that the CSRs are doing the best job they can, because they've got to sell the customer when they call them right off the bat, or else they're going to call our competitors. And so, whatever you could do to lessen that back end work that you're doing and focus more on front end stuff that's going to help your sales is going to be a win for you and for the customer and for the technician. So,
yeah, I think that is that sounds true for us in tech sales as well. I've been reworking our sales funnel recently as well. And you just go step by step, right? Like, hey, this first thing, we need to send a reply to someone, or we need to research the client first a little bit. We've done that with AI now, using Wink specifically. I've gone and, you know, hey, here's a client coming in. Let's read up here's all the questions we have about them. Send it to Perplexity AI, right? Get some data back. Then categorize them, qualify them, like all those steps, is perfect for AI. And, we can do in Wink. We've done that ourselves. Dan, you bring up some interesting things around job costing. And I think you mentioned it because we do have some AI invoice processing and automations around the the supplier invoices. But can you talk a bit about the reason why that is so important? You touched on it, but I know historically commission calculations has been a huge thorn in your side when you were at Black Diamond, because firstly, like if your price book is wrong, then the costs on the job's going to be wrong, and you're obviously paying commissions based on the profit on the job, right? So can you maybe talk a little bit around the process that you guys had custom software written by, or had another vendor and had to do all kinds of things? Can you maybe talk about the struggles kind of you guys had to go through to get that right?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. So I've paid commission based on the gross margin, which requires you to do job costing. I've also done commission based on um, selling for the right price, and your condition or your commission is reduced if you discount. And both of them have plenty of pros and cons. But either way, if you're not doing some sort of job costing, how are you ever going to know if Joe the salesman who maybe overpromises to customers and doesn't put that in his description or something like that? Who knows? He might be the top sales guy, but all of his jobs might suck and they might not be profitable, and the installers are going to hate him for it, or which has happened to us plenty of times. And so job costing really is important. I went through a few years where we were very confident that as long as we had the right price set in the price book and the technicians can't change it unless they discount it, that the bottom, our profitability would be protected. But after running that for a while, it worked for a while. But then over time, we started realizing that, hey, we're not getting the gross margins that we should be getting. So something's not right somewhere. And a lot of it just comes down to the tedious process of adding all your costs in the Service Titan, making sure that Service Titan has your the correct labor rates in for each of the employees, and can calculate the overtime and that stuff. And the price book does have fields for all that stuff, but you gotta build it and set it up, and then you got to manage it every week and every payroll. And so I find software in general, but specifically with Wink, can be a huge time saver for you if you're able to really automate that job costing process and get be confident when you go into Service Titan, and it says you hit X margin or whatever, versus just hoping that things go well. Another thing related to that was selling for the right price. And I went for years and years at Black Diamond selling for the wrong price. Our price wasn't high enough to ever get us the net profit that we would need to be a growing, sustaining company. And so when we started raising our prices, I was like, man, we're gonna no one's gonna be hiring us for this or that or the other. And boy, was I proven wrong. I mean, once we got to the right price, and it's harder to sell for the right price. But if you sell it for the right price, and there's profitability in there, then that goes through the whole company. That allows you to pay your CSRs better, your accounting girls and guys better. It allows you to throw better company parties, get better health insurance, those types of things. And so believe in
people,
get the best people, and so like it all kind of bundles up together. But I think that having your business really set up to give your salesman the best chance at closing the deal by helping him or her in every way you can on the back end, and then keeping them accountable, making sure that they're doing their end of the process. That's a winning formula.
Yeah, awesome. I saw you nodding a lot, Vince. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, Dan's voice to me is audible chocolate. So everything he says, I'm just soaking it all in.
Yeah.
Vince known me too long, I guess.
Love it. Love it.
Okay. Look, I think we're kind of getting close to the end here of this chat. Like we mentioned, like a bunch of tools, and I don't want to go too much into how Wink can help, but Wink can help a lot on this stuff. I think everything we've spoken here, I've seen some automations of things that we've helped with that. I guess maybe on some closing thoughts, I'll ask each of you maybe to talk about maybe just 2 points. Like put your sage old wizard hat on, and maybe what advice would you give to home service business owner, to the business owner, like around sales and around things, the one life lesson that you've learned. And then secondly, to maybe what's your sage advice to a salesperson that works there? So I'll let Vince go first on this one, and Dan can think a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, what's interesting is I've helped a lot of companies with revenue operations, and the number one thing, I don't know if it's the number one thing that they need, but I do know it's the number one thing they need to get started. And that is to identify your ICP. So your ideal customer profile needs to be identified. Like if you could have the best customer ever, one that checked all the boxes, of you never would want to let them go. You want to marry yourself to that customer and client forever. Who are they? What would they be? What do they do? What is it about the relationship, the service that they love? Why do they keep coming back? I mean, identify that perfect thing, and then from there you can kind of branch out and see what audiences fit that, what industries, where do I start to target lists, how do I start to find where my ads make sense, and how do I partner up with marketing to find the right brand awareness campaigns mixed with lead and demand gen. But it all starts at the ICP level. And if you don't have that, a lot of people think, I have a great service, I have a great product, I'm ready to go. And that may be true, but if you don't know where that product is going or to whom it is going in front of, like you're going to spin your tires in the mud. So I have a lot of friends who are chief revenue officers in tech, and also fractional chief revenue officers for multiple clients, and that is the number one answer that they have told me. And that was early on in my career, and that was just kind of what stuck, is figure out your ICP. From there, I would recommend doing what we talked about. What are your manual processes? What are the tedious tasks that are too time consuming? How do you alleviate that with tech? And on the other side is, how are you going to scale those things in your sales and revenue operations? How are you going to scale that funnel? And what tech makes sense? Is that AI? Is that something else? So it really starts with your ICP. And I think once that's done, the messaging is refined, that makes sense, you're going to be fine. But if you don't have that ICP, you're going to be lost.
Yeah. And I think scaling is such an important part, because if you get your sales right, you're going to start growing. And if you're not ready to to keep growing, the growth might almost be a negative thing for you, because you're going to lose people and lose customers if you can't handle that, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Dan, maybe last words from you?
Yeah, so I would say, around, for a business owner that, is trying to improve sales. I think I mentioned earlier, transparency is huge. Making sure that you make it very clear what the compensation is, how it works, and then every payroll, you've got to reprove to that technician that they can trust you, that you're doing it right, and that you're not, taking advantage of them. Because once that trust is broken, then either got employees that are not giving it 100%, or maybe they're, sneaking inside jobs or whatever they might be doing, and they might still be with you, but they're just not fully with you. But so I think being transparent, but on the flip side, you've got to hold the salesman accountable. I mean, salesmen are historically famous for over promising and giving freebies away, or things like that, and what we used to call it a sell and dump, when somebody sells a job and then they don't do any effort to explain to the guy that's going to be doing the work, all the little things about that. And so when we got our good sold job process going, where the salesman had to, if he sold the job, he had to do X, Y, and Z to make it really clear to the install team that, hey, this is exactly what we're doing. And then that salesman also has to kind of stay in the loop until that job is done and that customer's happy. And so you've got to hold them accountable. Don't let the salesman run your life, even if they're, if they're $1 million, $2 million salesmen. If they're causing a whole bunch of problems on the back end with your installers or with your accounting department, maybe that salesman isn't worth it. And maybe that salesman would have never gotten bad if you would have held him accountable and kept him, focused on the things that mattered. And so yeah, a few tips on that.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. And I think most people listening to this, they can think of someone like that. They like I can, as you were talking about that, I've had some experience similar to that as well. So yeah, it definitely rings true. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate this. This was a good chat. I think we'll definitely do some more chats about other things in the future. Like Vince, I really want to pick your brain on some tech stuff. That's just the engineer in me. But I'll let you guys go back to your blizzards and snow shoveling outside or something. I don't know. Vince was talking about this thing that I've never done. Like I got sunburned like on the weekend because we were at the pool, outside in Australia. And Vince is like, "Oh no, I gotta go shovel some snow." I'm like, I don't even know how you would do that, So, but appreciate your time, guys.
Now the trick is get a snow blower and then it's fun. Or get a snow plow, and it's even funner. So,
or you pay someone, right?
Yeah,
there's a good salesman out there telling you to. He's got a solution,
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Vince can get the AI to do the shoveling, right? So that'll help.
Yeah, there we go.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys. Cheers.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll see you.